This is where you come for instant post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
And that'll do it. 1 second, they get it to Steph. Let's not get crazy. That's the end of the game. 116, 115. The Warriors go 2-2 on the trip. Now, I waited on this because it was going to burn me in Toronto. The Warriors now are 19-4 when they lead after the third quarter.
All right, Warriors get the win. 116-115 is the final. Why the hell am I giving the score? We just gave the score. 19-4 when winning after three, or when leading after three. They never trailed in the game. 24-point lead. Almost gave it away, but didn't. How about this nugget for you, Fitz? Fitz, you didn't have this one. Warriors are 8-17 in their last 25 games, but 3 of the 8 wins are against the Timberwolves, including 2 at Minnesota. How about that? The Warriors, in all their despair, have been able to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves 3 times, the entire season series between these two teams taking place during this period of 25 games, now nearly a third of the season, where the Warriors have been awful, and yet they've come up big against the Timberwolves in 3 out of 4 for nearly half of their total amount of victories that they've had going back almost 2 full months now. It's really, I've said 6 weeks a lot, but we're about to turn this thing to 7. 808 KNBR, the number. It is Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 415-808-5627 to jump in and join the conversation. Warriors are 20-20, right back to 500. They do go 2-2 in the trip, as Fitz mentioned, and a much-needed win. Look, for all of the conversation that has been about the Warriors and whether or not they even give a damn about what's ahead of them in the second half of this season, and whether they're going to look to make any moves and everything at the trade deadline, the one thing the Warriors needed very much was to come out and not continue to let the actual games that they have to play, continue to be poor performances and losses, because with every loss at this point, it was leading the Warriors down this road that they already seemingly were going down, as to kind of what's the point of the whole exercise as far as trying to salvage the season. And I think that is, I was thinking about this during the game tonight, just the simple fact that, if you want the Warriors to actually continue to push forward here, they're going to have to get on a little bit of a run. Given all the comments that Steph made, and Draymond and Steve Kerr, and just being so comfortable with being mediocre, and the unwillingness to look to really make some moves and try and fix this thing, even to the level of trying to avoid a play-in tournament or get to a 6 seed or whatever. The truth is, and it kind of clicked during the game for me, the only way it's going to happen is if the Warriors get on a little bit of a run here between now and the trade deadline, which is 3 weeks from tomorrow. And they've got a ton of home games coming up, +1 in Sacramento, 8 of the next 9 for the Warriors at home. But none of that matters if you start to get so far removed from 500 that even if you win a couple of games in a row, you're still at or even a game or two below 500. So tonight really is huge for the Warriors in terms of, if you are somebody that believes that they should continue to fight and try to make something of this 2024-25 season. So that's the one side of it. That's the big picture side of it. The micro part of it tonight is the fact that this really is, given the Warriors not having Draymond Green and not having Kuminga and not having Podziemski, this is really one of the best wins of the year overall, just in terms of quality games that the Warriors play. And I know a lot of nights the micro, and we didn't really spend a ton of time on Monday, getting into the game specifics, because the bigger picture stuff mattered more. But tonight, I think, is a game where the the game specifics do kind of matter. Warriors jump out to a 13-0 lead in the first 4 minutes. The Timberwolves don't score for the first 4:26 of the game. And the Warriors are up 18-4 and 26-5 and 34-12 at the end of the first quarter. Incredibly, and you knew the Timberwolves were going to make a run. You knew the game was going to get close. The Warriors love to blow leads. Anthony Edwards started to get his game rolling in the second quarter. But the Warriors able to do just enough to withstand throughout the course of the game to where they end up losing the other 3 quarters, but the plus 22 after one ends up being enough. They lose the second quarter by 9. They lose the third quarter by 4. They lose the fourth quarter by 8. But it doesn't matter. The Warriors still, despite giving up 73 points in the second half, it's enough with some clutch Steph Curry down the stretch in this one. And what a monster game from Andrew Wiggins in this one. Getting to the free throw line, the big rebound down the stretch there off of the GP2 free throw miss. And look, as well as the Warriors played to build the 24-point lead, 22 at the end of the first quarter, they led by as many as 24. As great as the Warriors played to get that lead, they did everything in this game that we've seen them do all season long to blow games like tonight with leads and to be able to, whether it's the other team gets hot. I know there was some frustration among the fan base. I was seeing a little bit on social media with the officiating in the third quarter as the Timberwolves got to the line a ton of times. You look up into the night, 22-29 for Minnesota, 18-21 for the Warriors. But the turnovers, the bad shots, a little bit of bad luck sprinkled in. Like, you're just thinking all through the game, the Warriors are probably going to find a way to not win it. And then they find a way to win it down the stretch. And it took a lot. It took some hustle plays. It took some big Andrew Wiggins baskets. It took some free throw makes. And a lot of those from Andrew Wiggins throughout the course of the game. And then Stephen Curry, it also took a 7 of 12 3-point outing from Steph and 31 points in 37 minutes for the Warriors to prevail in this one, 116-115. So 808 KNBR, the number, 415-808-5627 to jump in and join the conversation. You can give me a call or shoot me a text here on the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. 408 right off the bat. JD, do you put much stock in this win, or is it more of just a one-off? I mean, look, they've beaten Minnesota 3 times, so clearly it's a matchup thing. I think it also is, and I put this out there on social media at the beginning of the game. When you watch the NBA a lot, Minnesota is extremely unserious at home at the beginning of games. Like they get down a lot early and really don't start playing until they get down at home and have to play much better throughout the longer portion of the game to be able to win a lot of those games. And tonight it bit them. And they're still the more talented team compared to this Warriors team, and they've been underachieving. They made the Karl Anthony Towns trade. I mean, they're 21-19. I mean, they're one game better than the Warriors and have lost to the Warriors 3 times this year. So it's not a one-off because they've beaten them specifically 3 times, but I think the matchup might be a one-off. But and then all you got to do is look at the last 2 games. I mean, the Timberwolves are in the conference finals last year. Knock out Denver. Again, different version. They wanted to save some money, so they rid themselves of Karl Anthony Towns' contract and sent him to the Knicks. So different team, but I mean, look at the Raptors at 9, and they got their 10th win against Boston tonight. But Toronto did after the Warriors had beaten or got beat by the Raptors late in the game. But all you got to do is look at these last two games for the Warriors. You lose to Toronto in as frustrating a fashion as I think any game the Warriors have had this season, and it feels like a low point, and then you're able to go to Minnesota for a second time here in the last month and get a win and execute down the stretch and win and build a lead and hold on. And so, it's not a one-off, but at the same time, I mean, I don't really think tonight is any indicator that the Warriors are now suddenly going to be able to build big leads against good teams on the road and hang on. I mean, they barely hang on by a thread. I don't think that's any more of what we're going to see moving forward from this team on a consistent basis than seeing them lose to a team like the Raptors on a night where they don't play well. I mean, so I think both of those things are equally true. I mean, this team's 20-20, and the halfway mark of the season will come after the game on Saturday night when they come home for this beginning of the stretch where they're going to play 8 of the next 9 at home here before a 6-game road trip that'll lead into the All-Star break. But you look at the next 10, there are 10 games to go now before the trade deadline. And I think if the Warriors players want to send a message that this team is worth investing in, again, I'm not talking about a championship or anything like that or a superstar player, but I think clearly the Warriors are trending toward, if you believe what's been discussed in the last few days, clearly they're trending toward doing nothing or stripping it down a little bit at the deadline, unless, and I'm stating this, they haven't said this part, unless the Warriors themselves show in the next 3 weeks that a move or two on the margins can be enough to maybe get them into the conversation for being a 6 seed. And right now, the 6 seed's the Clippers at 21-17. And I will reiterate what I said the other night. I don't think this Warriors roster, as they're currently constituted, even 2 games back of 6th. And the Clippers are thumping the Nets right now. They're up by 50 down in Inglewood. 104-53. I've got that game on in front of me here. So it'd be 2.5 back of 6. So it's all jumbled up. Clippers are right there. Lakers just won tonight, so they're 22-17. The LA team's getting back in action here the last couple of days after the fires down in Southern California. And so 5 over, and they're 5th, and 5th is, so you're just as far out of 5th as you are to 6th. Again, I don't think this roster, as it's currently constituted, is enough to do it. But if you show that you're good enough to where you go make a move or two, smaller move or two, maybe that is the difference. And then we can have some fun down the stretch of this season, because to me, that's what it's really about. It's about making the games in February and March and April matter toward maybe you get a first-round playoff series and you see if you can pull off an upset. I mean, that's really all we were ever talking about to begin with. What I don't think nobody wants is you get past the trade deadline and some of the vets are gone and it's only the young players that are playing, and Steph and Draymond are shut down or half shut down, and it's basically the Jonathan Kuminga show and you're losing every night, but he's getting his 25 to 30 points. Nobody wants that. That's not what this franchise should be about. Now, if you're talking about getting on a little bit of run, getting Kuminga back, making a move or two, you get on a 5-6 game winning streak, it can change everything. But again, I don't think, if you look at the entirety, the totality of what we've seen the last 2 nights from the Warriors, the game in Toronto on Monday and the game tonight in Minnesota, I think it's abundantly clear that this team's going to continue to surprise us every once in a while like they did tonight, and they're going to continue to disappoint like they did on Monday. They are a 500 team at 20-20 in every definition of the word, and I think trending still toward less than a 500 team if you look at the 8-17 in the last 25. But for whatever reason, a good matchup for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. So credit to the Warriors. Credit to Stephen Curry for helping to bring them home. Credit to Andrew Wiggins tonight for helping to bring them home. Buddy Hield with 18 big points. Moses Moody was really good in this game tonight. Moses Moody was 4 for his last 24 shooting coming into this one. 4 for his last 24 tonight. He was 4 for 6 and 3 for 4 from 3. So Moses Moody was a positive player tonight, +7 off the bench. So it was Steph and Wiggins, and it was a lot of Wiggins when Steph was out, and it was aggressive Wiggins and looking to score. And the Warriors needed that. The Warriors needed what they got from Steph Curry and what they got from Buddy Hield and what they got from Moses Moody. Dennis Schroeder, before he fouled out, an efficient 12 points, which hasn't always been the case. And it's enough with some really good defense early that offset the fact that they didn't really play great defense in the final 3 quarters of this game at all, giving up 103 points in the final 3 quarters of the game. You go up 103 in 3 quarters, that's rough, and you usually don't win. But you do if you get off to a 34-12 lead, as the Warriors did in this one. By the way, the Warriors, 10-0. We talked about Buddy Hield. 10-0 this season when Buddy Hield scores 18 or more. And he had 18 tonight. 3 for 6 from 3, 6 of 11. And hit some big ones. So, again, can you bank on that? No, we've seen it. You out of, 40 games now, you can bank on it in about 15. 10 to 15 of those games, you can bank on it. I mean, literally 10. 10 times he scored 18. But every time he's done it, the Warriors have been victorious. So I don't put a lot of stock in this game specifically, but it did show after a rock bottom type of a performance where you're questioning whether this team even cares, whether this franchise even cares, whether this organization even cares about showing up night to night or will care about showing up night to night. I think for a night, they put that to bed. And so for a night, I think that's a positive thing now with the 8 of the next 9 at home. And we'll see. It's, varying degrees of competition for the Warriors coming up in this next stretch. Washington, Boston. I mean, it doesn't get, you get the defending NBA champs and you get the team with the worst record in the NBA in back-to-back games here, beginning on Saturday night. You go to Sacramento, you play a Kings team that has the exact same record right now as the Warriors do at 20-20. They got off to a mess start, then things flamed out. They've been playing better. Like, they've very different trajectory to get to that point. They're playing much better basketball lately, certainly, than the Warriors are. But you're playing a team that's got the same record as you, and you're playing Chicago. And you got to play the Lakers again. And you're getting Utah. And then Oklahoma City and Phoenix. So you're getting a bunch of teams that you're right there in that same group with. You're getting a couple of the best teams in the league in Boston and Oklahoma City coming on this homestand. And you're getting some of the worst in Utah and in Washington. So it's going to be very interesting, and I think will tell the story, because the Warriors, between Saturday and February 3rd, that 9-game stretch with 8 of the games at Chase Center and the other one in Sacramento, there's that plus one more game in Utah and then the trade deadline. So it's 10 games to go to the trade deadline. And again, I think the big thing is the Warriors, at least for tonight, squash the notion that they're just kind of done for the year and phoning it in, and what is there to play for? And there's no moves that are going to be made. So what's the point? Which I think is it's a good sign. It's a good sign. 808 KNBR. All right, YouTube chat. A lot of people concerned. Rich Ray, Wiggins won it for us with Steph, of course. This team is a stress ball. Yeah, Wiggins was outstanding. Yeah, regulator, once Buddy scored 18, the game was over. That's right. 10-0 now. Rebel to Sounds, 3rd quarter Wolves free throw parade was crazy. A lot of people, a lot of Warrior fans complaining about the officiating in the third quarter. Rebel DeSound's not alone there. But yeah, a good win. A good win. They competed. They played hard. They got the Steph performance. Again, a lot of the things that have been in play when the Warriors have won this year were in play tonight. Steph down the stretch, Steph 30+, Steph with 5 or more three-pointers. They had a clear-cut number 2 scorer tonight in Wiggins. Wiggins made a ton of hustle plays, and they got the Buddy Hield game. And they were up after the end of the third quarter, had enough margin to where when the ultimate, I'm not going to call it a collapse, but when the runs came, they had a big enough lead to where a bucket here and a bucket there was enough to just keep the Timberwolves at arm's length. And look, we've witnessed this a lot with the Warriors this season. Minnesota also had a couple of real good opportunities to tie and or take the lead or really make the Warriors hurt, put them in a bad spot. And sometimes those wide open shots in key junctures of a game rim out. You know, Edwards had one. Naz Reid had a couple. Dante DiVincenzo felt like hit all of his that came up in that scenario. But sometimes those big momentum swinging shots to where if they go in, the trajectory of the game continues down that path. And tonight, those shots, enough of them were missed to where the Warriors were able to reestablish their lead at a bunch of different points in this game. Enrique Rivera, good evening, JD, says Enrique. Good evening, Enrique, and good evening to everyone. Gamer Dude, hello, Kyle. Hello, John. Yes, Kyle Haar, of course, in our San Francisco studios. JD here tonight from the home studio. We're going to be back at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City on Saturday. And also Monday, Harmonic Brewing. We're going to be on before and after the game. So before the game, I'm going to be on with Dieter Kurtenbach from 10 until 2. And the final 2 hours of that show, 12 to 2, I will be out at Harmonic in Thrive City before the game. The game's at 2. So you can stop by anytime between 12 and 2 and say hi before the game. And then you can stop by, and Greg Silver's going to be on hand after the game, 4:30, right as the game ends. We'll have a little meet and greet, YouTube-only show. You can come by and watch the national championship game in college football between Notre Dame and Ohio State as well. So busy Monday here on the MLK holiday weekend, which is coming up. But we'll get things going again at Harmonic on Saturday. We'll be in Sacramento for the game on Wednesday, and then back at Harmonic next Thursday and Saturday for the Bulls. And then the Lakers. Drew Down can count on the Dubs. Can't count on the Dubs, but you can always count on JD and Greg Silver. Yes, you can. Especially Monday. Especially Monday. We will be together. Everyone's worst nightmare. Warriors are back, baby. I don't know if they're back, but they do own Minnesota. As regulator says, that's 3 straight for the Warriors against the Timberwolves. And again, 3 of 4 in the season series overall. And all of those games were in the Warriors' bad stretch. Every one of them. None of those games in the 12-3 stretch, all of them in the 8-17 stretch. That's incredible. I mean, you think about that for a second. 8-17. This 27 games is a third of a season. So 25. So basically, for a third of the season, the Warriors have won 8 games. We're on here every night. People are furious, frustrated. 8 games out of a third of the season, and 3 of the 8 are against Minnesota. Team that was in the Western Conference Finals. Again, this team wasn't in the Western Conference Finals. I should qualify that. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns is gone, and you know, Minnesota just Anthony Edwards is great. They don't look like they like playing together. Like they do not look like a happy team. They just unserious, unmotivated, a lot of talent. I think Chris Finch overall has done a pretty good job there, but their whole energy is off. I think anytime you get to a point where you have the success that they had last year and then you make a big trade when you kind of feel like you're on the brink of maybe doing something special, and then you, regardless of what you think of Karl Anthony Towns, when you take one of the best players away and it entirely feels financially motivated, and Julius Randle, for no matter what you think of Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle's a much less impactful and effective player toward winning. And think about that, because we can have the debate about Karl Anthony Towns and the level at which he impacts winning, and have for the decade that he's been in the league. But when you look at Randle, I mean, Randle is just a drain. I mean, he is just a drain on winning in a big way. And so you make that trade financially motivated, and Edwards continues his ascent, but the rest of the team that was seemingly pretty well put together is not nearly at the level. And it, you know, it is an indicator. I saw Tim Kawakami of the SF Standard. He had tweeted this out or put it out on Blue Sky or one of them. But he just put out a little, hey, the Warriors aren't the only creaky team in the middle of the West standings. And I found that to be notable. And it is a reminder that this team still has the ability to do something if they want to try to. That was more where I took it. It's not, hey, where the Warriors are right now is okay. It's more, or just, you know, stand pat and you're going to be fine. It's more, to me, the fact that you're still right there. And if you do something, the rest of the West isn't great shakes, and you have the ability to move up a little bit. So 808 KNBR, let's get to the phones. We got a few people on the line that want to talk. It's 415-808-5627. John Dickinson here, Dubs OT with JD. Let's get it going with Eugene in Los Gatos, our tip-off caller tonight here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Eugene.
JD, can I ask you something before I start my rant in a little bit?
Sure.
So I want, you're more connected. I want to get as much of a genuine answer. What do you legitimately think Joe Lacob is thinking in his head, like right now, watching this game and seeing that unfold?
Just tonight's game?
Yeah, just take tonight. We have a whole team. Let's just take tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's seeing when Curry plays like a superstar. When Curry and Wiggins does what they did tonight, and you get the third guy in Buddy Hield off the bench, this team can, and they play hard, they can still beat anybody, like on a given night. Now, is that a four? I think he thinks of it in that vein, but I think part of it is, sometimes the night to night thing is futile. Like it just like the trying to extrapolate what one win means in the grand scheme of like what a team can be, I think is just a futile thing at times, because the sense that I've gotten from this team throughout the year is when they're playing well, it's, well, you can't break them up because they're playing well. Or even on a night like tonight, it's like, well, wow, you look at what they were able to do, and then you get Kuminga back, and then you get, Draymond back, and then, it's only going to be better. Well, no, because we've seen that it's not only going to be better when they've had everybody playing to varying degrees, and those players individually have played well, some games haven't, and others. So to me, I'll tell you what I think he should be thinking. I think he should be thinking that this season is still worth salvaging, and that's what I think he should be thinking. But I don't know. Where are you at with tonight? I mean, does tonight mean they're going to get on a run? No, because they've had other wins like tonight, and then they lose games like the game that they lost to Toronto or at home to Brooklyn. And it all just kind of adds up to you're in the mix, but you're not ever really where you want to be.
Yeah. So look, I'm going to rant. You cut me off whenever, JD, because I have a lot to say. But
no,
look,
go for it, man. I may jump in. I may jump in a little bit, but I want to give you your room a little bit. Go ahead. Okay.
Look, I love Joe Lacob. I've been through the Chris Cohen years. I know what a bad owner looks like. We have a good owner. So I'm saying that to caveat everything, okay? But to me, tonight is so frustrating because look, God bless Gui Santos, but, we have Brazilian Gui Santos as probably our third best player, and yet Steph drags us to win. And the one constant that we have this year, as you mentioned, is this win any optimism for the rest of the season? No, because we cannot string together any offense when we need it, and we make very dumb defensive plays when it's in crunch time. The one thing that has always saved us for 20 games, and the beginning of the season got a little hot, but DeAnthony went down. The one thing that saved us is Steph Curry, and he's proven to us in a weak Western Conference outside of OKC, who yet is still untested, he's still a top 10 player in the league. Now, look, all this weird messaging that I'm sure is coming from the top that they all came out with recently, I'm so confused. Because, look, you can either tank, but you cannot tank when the best or, top 10 player on your team is still doing this. So we're going to get, the 15th pick? And what has their draft record been outside of 2013, that draft class? It has just been miss after miss after miss. So I'm just so, frustrated, confused. And with Lacob, the one thing I want to let him know is this. Look, if you're thinking post-Steph that you are going to ride out into the sunset with this Kuminga, it's not going to happen. I think that's very apparent. But the one thing us fans will always thank the ownership for is legacy. Now, look, I'm not this Steph over the Warriors, but what I'm saying is at the current moment, our future is now, and we have a legitimate shot with Steph. So cash in the chips, and it's what are we going to do? We have no first. What first have we hit on in the last 5 years? You tell me. So, very frustrated. Thank you for letting me rant. Would love your thoughts from all that.
No, good. It's a good phone call. Again, it goes back for me. It's this season is worth saving, and I think the Warriors should view it that way. And yeah, Steph dragged them to a win. They got the game that they got from Wiggins. We discussed all of that, but you can give up some of either your young players or your near future draft capital to bring somebody in. And again, here's where I draw the line. It doesn't necessarily have to be for a star player. Because I think too often we get down this road of if you're not going to win a championship, then do nothing. Or if you don't think you can get to the finals, then do nothing. No, what I think they should do is make an attempt to try and make this team formidable enough to where they can get into the playoffs, avoid the play-in, and then let the chips fall where they may in a playoff series. If things, if Steph goes off in a series, if they find the right matchup, if more of their depth is able to prove to be beneficial to them, but you're going to have to do a full-blown rebuild anyway. That's the part that, you can trade a couple of picks and a couple of young players and still in 29 or 28 or whenever, post Steph, 27, 29, 30, whatever it is, you're still going to have to do a rebuild. So giving up some of that isn't necessarily going to crush you. But again, the big thing for me the last couple of days is it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be only a superstar, only for a chance at a title. No, it can be make a couple on the margins moves that mean you can get to 6th, then maybe you get the right matchup. You're telling me that the Warriors with a couple of improved rotation players, another starting caliber player, even if he's not an all-star player, you're telling me the Warriors can't maybe get to 6th and they play Memphis or Houston in a first-round series who are 2-3 right now and couldn't pull off that upset? Now, nobody's going to say, all right, they're going to do that and beat Denver and Oklahoma City and Dallas. And nobody's saying that. But that doesn't mean that you just go down with nothing and ride this team into the ground until they get 5, 6, 8, 10 games under 500. So I do think there's an in-between ground there. Eugene, thanks for the call. X is next here in Sacramento. What's going on, X?
John Dickinson, super reporter, boots on the ground. Hey, listen, one thing about this whole getting out of the Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson era is that we are going to have to rebuild. and it's going to be tough. And one thing that we're understanding about that, the comparison is with the San Francisco Giants coming out of their 3 championships in 5 years. Eventually, you have to pay for that, and just be patient with it. It's going to be, we might get Steph another chance, but you know what? Steph has had 4 championships. There's not many dudes that have had 4 championships. 4. That's a lot, man. And we should be kind of like, I don't know. I was a Golden State Warriors fan in the Baron Davis We Believe era. And so to be able to see 4 different titles, I never thought I would be able to see that in my lifetime as a Golden State Warriors fan. So I think everybody just needs to calm down, understand that it's going to be a little bit haggard getting back to the top, but eventually we will get there.
Yeah, again, I think what it is. Everybody knows they're going to have to rebuild, and it's not going to be easy. It's just a matter of this year, next year, and maybe the following. It's the Steph years, right? It's doing the rebuild with Steph on the roster, because let's be honest, they don't have a future franchise player on this roster. I mean, maybe it's Kuminga, maybe, but that's 2 to 3 years away, even if it's Kuminga. And there really isn't anybody else on the roster that projects to be that, even at their highest projection. So at that point, I think when you do the calculus on it, it's the ability to try and do something with Steph these next 2 years. There's more of a value on that than saying you're trying to develop a new future right now for 2027 or 2028, because the reality is, even if Jonathan Kuminga is an all-star in 27 and 28, you still have nothing else around him at that point. So it leads to this conversation of I don't think anybody's expecting this team to win a championship, but it's try to be as good as you can be now, because and instead of being mediocre now, and then also still being bad down the line, because I think that's the thing that is the misnomer. And X, thank you for the call. I think what ends up happening is, you could end up being bad now and bad later. And being bad now or being cautious now is no guarantee that you're going to be good later in terms of, didn't give up these guys in 24, 25, and 26. So that means they're definitely going to be better in 28. No, you may be in a full rebuild anyway, and you hung on to some of these guys. So I think that's the part of it. But it's the inaction and the seeming acceptance here of the last week of Steph and Steve Kerr. And I know Kerr addressed it post-game, and we'll play some of the audio for you coming up in Sounds of Dubs OT. But, the notion that the Warriors are just, not committed or quitting or giving up on the season. Well, and I'm glad he addressed it, and we'll hear what he had to say, and we'll react to it, because it frankly needed to be addressed, because the vibe off of this team and unchecked, by the way, I feel like, over the last week has been, well, season's kind of over, can't really do anything. This is a mid team, maybe worse. And you know what? It is what it is. We tried, can't do anything. Trades are hard, not going to mortgage the future, shouldn't mortgage the future, not worth mortgaging the future. Okay, fine. But you still have 40 freaking games you got to play. So what, is it going to be more like what we saw Monday in Toronto? And so that's the part where, again, I'm glad Kerr addressed it, because it was I thought it was as low level a week, and just non-commitment to winning and positive culture a week as the Warriors have ever had, I think, under Joe Lacob and Bob Myers / Mike Dunleavy / Steve Kerr, where, I mean, they were basically hinting at, we don't really care about the rest of this season. And tonight was a statement to the contrary, but there need to continue to be statements to that contrary, win or lose, in terms of competitiveness on a night in, night out basis, in terms of looking to improve the roster, in my mind, on a night in, night out basis, and in looking at who's playing on a night in, night out basis. Steph Curry played 37 minutes tonight. You know what? If Steph played 33 minutes tonight, the Warriors probably lose. And but you know what? They don't have a choice. Do you want to win and compete and try to make the next couple of months matter? Or do you want to phone it in and spend the next 3 months talking about, can you get the 10th pick in the draft? Like, who cares about that? All right, you're listening to KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader. It's John Dickinson. It's Dubs OT with JD here on a Wednesday night. Warriors win 116-115 in Minneapolis. They led by as many as 24. They never trailed. It looked like it was going to get away from them late. And wow, this one on top of the game in Toronto the other night. Another blown lead, another clutch loss. Could have had the potential to be a backbreaker, but the Warriors get it thanks to Steph, thanks to Wiggins, thanks to Moses Moody, and a little bit of Buddy Hield with his 18 points as well. Quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll get back to the phones. Ken, actually, you know what, Ken? I'm going to get you in right now, Ken. Ken in Portland. We're going to push the break again here. Let's get Ken in Portland right now here, man. You've been on hold for a minute. You're on the sports leader. What's going on, Ken?
Can you hear me, John?
I got you loud and clear, my friend. What's on your mind tonight?
Perfect. So first of all, I appreciate you having the courage to talk about what I call the middle path. We don't need to mortgage the future to still have this season be interesting. And we don't necessarily need to blow it up and do a full tank. And even if we did, we wouldn't catch. There's 7 or 8 teams ahead of us on the whole tank game. 7 teams, I think, they're so far ahead of us. We ain't getting down to those high probability positions, but we can kind of keep doing what we're doing and still get to the 8th or 9th or 10th spot, even if they decide to pull the plug on the season 15, 20 games from now. So I'm with you on the middle path. Guys like specifically Daniel Thies down in the New Orleans Pelicans. He's on the German national team with Dennis Schroeder. Put that guy out there on the second unit at center and let him do kind of the pick and pop. I mean, they beat the USA in the FIBA a year ago. I mean, he's good for a minimum. Guys like that, little small trades on the margins so that the roster makes sense. And
you can get another wing. If you can get another 3-and-D bench wing, I know I've been high on Cam Johnson. They probably don't want to give up what it would take to get Cam Johnson. I really do think Cam Johnson would open up a lot. Although, again, I can understand, wanting to maybe save Kuminga for either further development or, maybe he turns into the player that you want him to be. So I can understand the unwillingness to maybe give up Kuminga as you start to dip below 500 before tonight, all of that. But yeah, whether it's Tice, whether it's Valanciunas, whether it's Vucevic, it's been talked about, whether it's another kind of wing player that you can have come off the bench that can play another shooter as well. Again, it's not just an automatic that you can go get these guys, but I do think there are players out there to be had that you can make moves on and for, and it's the lateral kind of trade. You trade somebody that hasn't quite worked out for you for somebody that hasn't quite worked out on another team who's going in a different direction. I think too often we focus on, well, it has to be this home run, huge, massive superstar. No, I just want these games to be interesting. Again, I can accept that the Warriors are not going to win a championship this year. I think we all know that. I think we all knew that, last summer that wasn't going to be in the cards. But what I'd like to see, Ken, and it sounds like it lines up with what you're saying, is let's see 40, really interesting games. And if you play well enough, you don't have to do the play-in tournament thing, maybe. And then let's see a first-round series. That'll be fun for the last couple weeks of April. And then I think you have a better, more clear idea of just how far away you are. And then you can look to make the big move and decide whether it's worth it or not at that point. But this whole just go into the shell and be 35 and 47, 15 and 25 in the second half of the season is just like that. I just miss me with all of that, Ken. I don't want to sign up for any of that.
Well, here's a question for you, John. If the team, let's say they don't finish in one of the top 6 seeds in the West, and they are the 7th seed, and so they have to go through the play-in. Now, are they in the lottery, whether they get in the play-in or not, or how is that picked?
Yeah, if you make the playoffs, so if you could be 7, you can be 7, and let's say if you're 7, you have 2 games to win 1, right? So if you're in the play-in, you have 2 games to win 1. If you're the 7, I'll use that as the example. If you win one of those games, you're in the playoffs. Then you're not in the lottery. If you are the 7 and you lose both games and you don't make the playoffs, you would be in the lottery at that point. Now you'd have the worst odds, but you would be in at that point.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, the odds, they're not, if they go full tank from here, like pedal to the metal, rest Steph constantly, tendonitis acting up, pedal to the metal, they aren't going to do any better than like the 8th worst record in the NBA. And that's like a 25% chance to get a top 4 pick.
Right.
You know
Although
I mean?
the 7-8 slots have hit a lot recently. I know the odds are the odds, but if you go back through the last, I don't know, I want to say 7 or 8 lotteries, the teams, and it sounds like you followed it enough to where maybe you've done this a little bit. I don't have it right in front of me, but that 7-8 spot, I think the 7 and the 8 spots have actually moved up for whatever reason. It's enough of a chance to where it hits. It's hit more often than you would think it would here, to where teams have moved up in it. But to that point, I mean, you're right. They don't want to shut Steph down completely, I think, at this point, and they would really have to do it now for it to have any. Like, if you wait till the end of February or the beginning of March, then it's way too late. So I think that's essentially off the table at this point, to that level.
Right. Well, hey, I want to say something positive.
Sure.
I really appreciated seeing Andrew out there rebounding and hitting his free throws tonight.
Yeah, he played great. He played great tonight. There are some games where you can just see it. He's just more energetic, more spry. I think going back to Minnesota always gets his juices going a little bit. So I think you could see it. And, he's just some guys are just very comfortable in certain arenas. And I just, watching Wiggins tonight, he looked like a guy that felt like, oh yeah, they don't really like me much here because I was the number 1 pick and kind of a disappointment. I'm going to put it to him. And I'm very comfortable in this building. I played a lot of games in it. I'm going to get caught up in it and help hurt these guys tonight. Like it just felt that way. And it seemed that way at different points when he's played there. So yeah, they needed everything they got from him tonight. You'd love it if you could see it a little bit more consistently, or even on nights where, maybe somebody's out, like Kuminga's been out for a while here. But on the nights you get it, you truly do see what a difference it makes, because this team is entirely, you never can count on it. But when the Warriors do win, Ken, and then you go back and look at the box score, you go, oh yeah, Steph was great, and Wiggins was the clear-cut number 2, and Buddy Hield did some things off the bench to be the number 3, and you got the ancillary, good role player play from guys like Moody and the like, and some hustle plays, GP2 with his defense, and it all adds up to a win. But it just, for whatever reason, the nature of Andrew Wiggins' career, it's just never as often as you really would hope to get it.
Yeah, you can't really count on him to get you the buckets in the 4th quarter, but 1st through 3rd quarter, he can get you some points,
He can. And he got fouled enough tonight, and he made his free throws, to your point. Hey, Ken, thank you so much. Have a great night. Enjoy your night, and we'll talk to you again soon here.
Thanks.
All right, 808 KNBR. Let's go ahead and take that time out. We're way overdue. This is close to this is like one of the old Dubs OT, like inaugural season Dubs OT, like nearly an hour out of the shoot. So we will take a quick time out. We'll get back into the YouTube chat. If you want to jump in and join the conversation, 808 KNBR, you can. Appreciate everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch as well. We have Sounds of Dubs OT. Weren't really planning on going until 11 tonight, but it's already 10:15. So I think we're probably going to go to about 10:55 or 11 o'clock tonight. So we'll take a quick time out. We'll come back. Warriors get the win 116-115. They are 20-20 with the halfway mark to come on Saturday. It's Dubs OT with JD here on Esports Leader.
You know, like, what are we going to do? We have no first. What first have we hit on in the last 5 years? You tell me.
This is KNBR, and this is Dubs OT with John Dickinson, streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Minnesota's 2 of 14, 0 of 7 for 3. Curry looking to shake Conley. He does, and he hits. Steph Curry, 3 of 3 from three-point land, and it's an 18-point lead.
18-point lead en route to a 24-point lead, which the Warriors needed every single bit of. They hang on and win in Minneapolis 116-115. It's Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR, the sports leader. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Warriors 20-20, 213 in the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. The Warriors absolutely own the T-Wolves head-to-head. That's right. They win the season series 3 out of 4, win both games in Minnesota. And, yeah, those 3 wins coming at a time where the Warriors are not playing great basketball. 626 statement Dubs win in a game they had to get. Swag is back before the homestand. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they can chase that, because now this is a big opportunity now to make it 2, because the Wizards come in at 6-32, but they just played an 8-31 Toronto Raptors team and got beat by them, albeit on the road. So, yeah, Jordan Poole and company and the Wizards in their negative 14.3 point differential and 7-game losing streak headed for the Bay Area and headed for Chase Center coming up on Saturday night with the 5:30 tip. And, of course, we'll be on from Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City, after that one. 707 Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. JD, please comment about Dre missing the last 2 games. Personally, I didn't see much that the team was missing with him being out. In other words, I didn't notice he was out. That's from Jay in the 707. Yeah, Draymond ill the last couple of games, been dealing with a back issue. They miss Draymond Green. They absolutely miss Draymond Green. Defensively, they miss him. As a connector on offense, they miss him. Look, the Warriors defense, I think, on a lot of nights will completely go into shambles if he's out for an extended period of time. But, sometimes when he's out, and we've seen this even when Kuminga's played a little bit, sometimes when he's out, having a player in his spot that's a little bit more of a threat offensively can, on certain nights, make your team look a little bit more formidable. Or having somebody that's a little bit more equipped, and I'm looking at what the Warriors did at the 4 tonight. It was Guy Santos tonight, a lot at the 4. Moody and Payton played some 4 tonight. Just kind of looking at my little lineup sheet. Wiggins played some 4 tonight as well, because the Warriors were just down all their 4s, right? Draymond's out, Kyle Anderson's out, Kuminga's out. So the Warriors basically down all 3 of their power forwards. And so they had to play a little smaller. And when you do that, you have guys that are a little bit more multidimensional as players, or at least a threat to be multidimensional as players. And on nights where you're hitting shots, and the Warriors were hitting shots, and Minnesota wasn't, you tend to look, I think, like you've got a little bit more energy and flow. And look, Guy Santos is, he's out there hustling around and making plays. Gary Payton II played great tonight. He was 3 for 3 and had 6 boards and defended at an extremely high level. He's been a big part of the reason, along with Wiggins, why the Warriors have done so well against Anthony Edwards. Made him take 19 shots for his 28 points. In this one, a 7-19. So they really made Edwards work for his in the game. But, again, the more you don't have Draymond, the worse off you're going to be. But there are going to be nights, and like I've said, we've seen him even with Kuminga in Draymond's spot at times, where having a player that's more dynamic offensively, especially in the regular season, can work for you. It can work for you. And I think it forces the Warriors maybe to get a little bit outside their system. And sometimes that can be a little bit beneficial. But again, we're talking about some one-off nights. I mean, they didn't, you can say, hey, I didn't notice him not being out tonight, and they won the game in Minnesota. Well, I guarantee you, if he plays in the game in Toronto on Monday, the Warriors win that game, I feel like, because the Raptors got a little too comfortable. A team that's not a great offensive team, they got a little too comfortable on offense in that game, and it helped ultimately allow them to prevail in this one. So 808 KNBR 415 808 5627. Back to the YouTube chat. Read the Steed, huge decisive win. Ignore how close the game was. That might be the comment of the night. But yeah, that the Warriors did control the game, but you knew it was going to get close. You knew it was going to get close. As Regulator says, 24-point lead the first quarter means nothing, too much time left. Yeah, I mean, you knew this game was going down to the end. It was just, wow. They're up 24. Honestly, when they got up 12, when it was 13-0, I was thinking, okay, well, yeah, okay, whatever. Teams get up 10-13 all the time. When they got up 24, I thought they might have enough to win this game. But it took literally until it got to 24. And even then, I mean, one big bucket on a bunch of momentum-changing opportunities for Minnesota in that fourth quarter, and they wind up winning that game. And we've seen the Warriors lose that game a bunch. I mean, 4, 5, 6 times this year we've seen the Warriors lose that game. And wow, you look at this one. If you were to add it to the game that the Warriors just lost in Toronto, and it would have, even though the effort was much better tonight, it would have been a much bigger feeling of like a new low point again. Now you're 2 under 500. Then it's just you got to beat Washington anyway, but you could beat Washington and then you're 1 under. Then you got Boston coming in and the Kings are hot. If the Warriors lose tonight, especially in the fashion that they would have, again, it's just that uphill climb. We'd still be. I guarantee you, they don't win tonight. We're still talking about the comments that were made a couple of days ago. And really, I think some really as off-putting sentiment surrounding the Warriors organization and their just contentness with mediocrity and kind of shutting this thing down in the middle of the year because things haven't been going well. I thought it was it was as much of a loser's mentality, I feel like, as has ever existed in the Joe Lacob era for the Golden State Warriors. Just the fact that those conversations were even seeping in, that level of acceptance. You may believe it, but don't say it out loud. And guys were starting to say it out loud left and right, from Steve to Draymond to Steph. And to me, that's wholly unacceptable. It put a real bad taste in my mouth going back to over the weekend and Monday, and then in the aftermath of the game in Toronto when you have your worst loss of the year. And so it was addressed post-game, and we're going to play that coming up on Sounds of Dubs OT, and I think it needed to be addressed post-game. And Steve addressed it, and Steph addressed it, and we'll see what ultimately happens there. But you can't consider yourself to be one of the all-time great winning franchises in terms of the Steve, Steph, Draymond era and just be cool with kind of quitting on a year in January because a few things haven't gone your way. That I ain't down with at all. Alpha, good win, JD, all things considered. It's a great win. That's a great win. It's one of the wins of the year. Andis Brown, told you all would win tonight. Finch is a terrible coach. I disagree with that, but I don't get the impression he likes his team. I don't get the impression something's off. They definitely have a chemistry issue. I know I spent a decent part of the early part of the show there. I think Finch is a good coach, but I just don't get the impression that he loves his team, and there's things maybe he'd like to do that he doesn't feel he can do because of the way that they've built the roster. I think they've got some guys that are there that don't really want to be there in the aftermath of the trades. Dante DiVincenzo, I think he'd like to maybe not play Gobert at times at the end of games, and then can you really do that? Because he's somebody that the front office obviously loves, and they've extended and all these different things. So there's something that's amiss, I think, between the coach and the front office, and they've got a weird ownership thing going on there too, where they were going to get sold, and like A-Rod and company were buying them, and then the old owner, once they started to become successful again, was like, no, I actually don't want to sell the team anymore, and they're like basically fighting over who's going to own the team. The old owner tapped out, and then they're like, all of a sudden they've got Anthony Edwards and this great team that's on the upswing, and he's like, yeah, you know what, forget it, I don't want to sell the team anymore. Well, they had like already signed the documents and stuff, and so it's like in court to see who actually gets to own the team. So they've got some things going on in that organization. So yeah, I think. And yeah, Andis mentions, Gobert insists on playing him. Randall, yeah, he doesn't like Randall either, Andis. Like, he didn't like Randall or Gobert on a lot of these nights. I mean, that was the other one. But again, at some point you have to figure out some kind of way to use the guys that the front office has put there in front of you. And yeah, Andis, he don't want to lose Rudy. I think he also doesn't want to get called into the principal's office. I think that's part of it too. LM Wiggins finally hitting free throws consistently. He's too good to not shoot 80% from the line. Yeah, I agree. I think it needs to be between 75 and 80. And I think if he did shoot that well, he'd be more apt to try and get to the line more frequently. So good stuff in the chat. Carlos Herrera, love your show, JD. Well, appreciate you for listening and watching. Just wonderful. Our Dubs OT community in full strike here tonight. And again, if you get an opportunity to come out to Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City on Monday on the MLK holiday, please do. I would love to meet you. Stop by and say hi. Again, we're doing the YouTube show during the national championship game, post game after the Warriors and the Celtics, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And it just more of a loose environment, not being on the radio. We can maybe have some colorful language. We can bring some guests on. We can have a few more awkward pauses. Whatever. We can roll with it. We can give everybody their camera time. So yeah, definitely stop by and watch the game. Even if you don't have a ticket, watch the game at Harmonic. They keep the sound on it at Harmonic. I think that's a TNT game, and then watch the national championship game after that, and Dubs OT will be on there as well. So 808 KNBR. Let's take another quick timeout. We'll come back. Sounds of Dubs OT straight ahead. We've got some fun with numbers as well as the Warriors get back to 500 at 20-20. They beat the Timberwolves 116-115. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Did you hear something?
Yeah, like a swoosh.
Yeah.
Dubs OT presents the sounds of silver. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, welcome back. Dubs OT with JD. Final segment. We will go ahead and make this the final segment here as the Warriors do get the win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. Warriors now 20-20, 116-115. The final, the big start to this game, 34-12. Warriors after one. They would lead by as many as 24 in this one, and they are able to hang on and get the win by that 1 point final. Some big plays down the stretch, big shots from Stephen Curry, big shots from Andrew Wiggins, and a lot of hustle plays in this one from Moses Moody. Buddy Hield, by the way, 18 points in 29 minutes. He was a net positive player for the Warriors. Warriors 10-0 when Buddy Hield has 18 or more points. It's only happened the 10 times, but the Warriors at their best when it does. And a little bit of a nod for Trace Jackson Davis tonight. Not the best finishing night for TJD, but he did have 15 rebounds, and a lot of those early in the game were impactful as well. All right, let's get to our Sounds of Dubs OT here tonight. Let's go ahead and hear from Steve Kerr. And I teased this early because there's been so much discussion, and it really was a big part of the post-game on Monday when, Steve had acknowledged and had spent the last couple of days along with Draymond Green and Steph Curry acknowledging the fact that the Warriors shouldn't be looking to make moves or mortgage their future to try and salvage this season, essentially. And, if they're sometimes the best thing that can be done is nothing, and I'm paraphrasing, but that was a big part of what Steve specifically had to say. And a lot of people, I thought between the three of them collectively, and I said it, it truly gave off loser vibes. It gave off low-level, non-competitive, just really close to punting with over half a season to go kind of vibes. The kind of thing that you don't want a franchise that's been as dominant at times and successful over the last decade, plus really the entire time that Joe Lacob's owned the franchise. You do not want half a year punt. Like, you don't want that to have become your identity. And I think it was the fact that it was that it was even being addressed. And there's been so many mixed messages in the last month, really all over the place from the Warriors, from Kuminga's emergence to what their goals are, to every single player that a report will come out that they're interested in. Immediately there's a report that they can't or won't trade for that player. Just been a lot going on over the last month. Well, Steve addressed in the aftermath of the win the narrative that they're giving up. So here's what he had to say.
We didn't talk about it as a team. We're used to being in the spotlight. If there's a story about our team, it's going to go everywhere, and everyone's going to talk about it. And I hope there's not a misconception that we're not fighting and scrapping and hoping, that we can do everything possible to keep this thing going, because that's what we're doing. But it almost feels like the narrative became, the Warriors are giving in. We're not giving in. We're just not going to give away the future. That's the two totally different things. So we're fighting. You can see we've been competitive all year. We've had a few blowouts, but for the most part, our guys are competing like crazy. They play so hard every night, and just really nice to see them get rewarded, because it's a great group of guys.
Well, again, and that's not as forceful, it's misconception. I mean, look, you're going to have to win, and you're going to have your guys available and playing too. I think that's the other part of it. I know we're going to play the clip from Steve about Steph playing 37 minutes, and I know Steve really doesn't want to be playing him that much, but I think that's part of it too. It's this notion that, like, yeah, you know what? Yep, if Steph's got to play his 33. And if he plays his 33 and they lose, then so be it, because he's going to play his 33. Because if he plays 37, then that's just going to be too much, and he's going to wear down, and then we're going to lose games later. And I think, what fans want is, no, actually, you got a chance to get a big win that might turn into a couple of more wins because of the momentum of a season. So play him the 37 minutes and let him, and again, I know he's been banged up with the knees and the hand and all those different things, and you don't want to overdo it. But literally tonight, and I usually give the Warriors a benefit of the doubt on it. Literally tonight, if Steph plays 32 instead of 37 or even 35 instead of 37, they'd probably lose. And we're having a completely different conversation. And if you're not good enough to be able to withstand that, then go get some other players that make you good enough to be able to withstand that. So, again, TBD as to whether they're not fighting and scrapping. Tonight they were, but there have been other games where they have not. And again, it seems like it's more of an organizational, it's not the night to night for me. It's an organizational fight and scrap. Right? Organizations fight and scrap to continue to get better and turn over every rock and look for even marginal upgrades at different positions to try and continue to further the fight. And, again, we'll see what the Warriors do in the next 3 weeks. I think the jury's still out on them on that. But tonight is a great indicator because they did fight so hard that they're not giving in. Again, we can get into the whole conversation about not giving up the future and the definition of that because it is so broad. And we're going to spend a good chunk of just dubs on Saturday morning from 10 a.m. until noon here on KNBR, discussing all of that. The storylines that we're going to play, all the sound. We'll play Kerr. We'll play the reactions to what Draymond had to say and Steph Monday. We're going to get into all of that really for 2 full hours on Saturday morning here on these Sports Leaders. So I'm glad Kerr addressed it. I think he could have been a little bit more forceful, to be honest. Didn't love the response, but at least it was addressed. And again, when you show fight on the court, I think that's obviously the most important thing. And it may be truly just on this Warriors team to show the front office and ownership that this season is worth trying to salvage by maybe getting on a little bit of a run, getting on a little 7-3, 8-3 kind of a run here, beginning with tonight over these next 10 games before the trade deadline. If you can do that, I'm not saying they're talented enough to be able to do that, but I think if they could do that, I think there would be more of a thought to look to add even on the margins. All right, as promised, the other Steve Kerr clip on Steph playing the 37 minutes. Again, the Warriors needed it, but Steve Kerr doesn't love it. Here he is explaining that.
Steph, 37 minutes, season high, obviously delivers a huge performance. Just what kind of command did he have for the game tonight?
He was brilliant from the start. I hate that his minutes are creeping up. I don't like it, but we got to do what we got to do. And hopefully, as we get reinforcements back, we'll be able to get him back down to that 32 range. But tonight we had to kind of let it rip, and he's got a couple days before the next game, and it was important to get this win, and he got it done.
Yeah, needed to get that win, and there may be a couple other games where you have to do that in order to get a win. I don't know who's necessarily coming back that's really going to allow them to limit Steph's minutes significantly. Pajemski, I guess. I mean, Kuminga doesn't really do that. They play different positions. But yeah, I mean, I guess Pajemski coming back could help with some of the ball handling there, and you can get his minutes down in that vein. But again, this team, the level of success that they're going to have is so contingent on the right lineups and the right finishing groups and the right times you call a timeout and the right amount of minutes for your star, picking the right night to play him 37 versus the right night to keep it at 29. Like, all of those variables are controllable by Steve Kerr. And, I think those are the things where it is fair to open up some criticism for him. I think criticizing the game-to-game management of who should play and matchup-based things and the rotation and the constantly searching and inability to settle on a rotation, seemingly them playing better when they have fewer players available to them, even if it's a different group, that when the number is lower, they typically play better. Like, to me, those are the things you could be critical of Steve Kerr more than his offense or, the play calls and the 3-guard lineups and like a lot of the, playing too small, all those things that he gets, not enough pick and roll, all those things that he gets criticized for. Those things, like to me, but some of those other things I do think are, the night to night, when do you chase a win versus not? When do you call this timeout versus not? Playing the matchups of an individual opponent more than your system, I think are important. And I think that's lacking from time to time. And I think if he was a little better at that stuff, maybe they would be 2 or 3 games better. And again, that wouldn't mean they're a title contender, but if they were 2 or 3 games better right now, they'd basically be 5th in the West. And if they were 5th in the West, everybody would be saying, let's go make a move to get to 4th in the West, or at least stay at 5th in the West. Like it's all interconnected. All right. I'm getting off on another tangent here. We got to keep this thing moving. So we will do that. Stephen Curry addressing the narrative that, we'll use Steve Kerr's term, the narrative that the Warriors are giving up and that he's okay being average, or kind of giving up on a season midway through.
Anybody who thinks that I'm okay with just being an average basketball team is insane. Take whatever I said, I still stand on it, but that doesn't mean that you're not in a situation where you're trying to get better, make appropriate moves that help you do that. Mike knows that. We've talked about it. That's the expectation for me, trying to help lead the team where we want to go. Again, that doesn't mean that you're reckless. What people's definition of that is where I was talking about the Twitter fingers thing. Like, trade machines are fun, but what does that actually look like? So we're going to handle our business. Mike's going to handle his, see where we end up.
Yeah, well, and Steph handled his business tonight. But again, I think the front office and I think the ownership deserves the heat, flat out. And I think this is a pivotal time. Like, the one thing that cannot happen in my mind over the next 6 weeks is the Warriors just kind of meekly tap out. Like, they may not make the playoffs, they may not make the play-in. But the one thing that shouldn't happen here over the next 6 weeks between now and, say, the end of February, beginning of March, this team should not tap out. They should not punt. They should not let it seep in that it's acceptable to be mid, or that because you can't win a championship, half a season isn't worth really showing up for. And again, they didn't do that tonight. Tonight's an indicator that maybe this thing is going in a different direction. But it is wild to think about, and this has happened. We got to get to the bottom. And I think with the Warriors coming home here and going to be in SAC, and I'm going to be going on the road a little bit as well, coming up on the next more lengthy trip. But kind of finding out what is truly going on internally, because there have been so many just varying messages during this time where they've struggled. From roles to, Draymond coming off the bench and Kuminga's going to be a star and he's the future. And then a couple of weeks later, Kerr benches him to the point where everybody's thinking there's going to be a trade request, coming at any point there right before Christmas. And then Kuminga starts playing better. And then they become incredibly dependent on Kuminga to the point where he gets hurt and they can barely win a game for a week. And then they look old and slow. And then Steph basically putting everybody on notice that they need to look to make moves and the clock is ticking. And then the rebuttal to that after the Toronto game and what Draymond said about Steve and Steph all being in lockstep. Like it has been a freaking roller coaster the last couple of weeks in terms of what the chatter has been, and it's the players and it's the organization saying it. And what's been leaked to reporters. So it's incredible to think what this thing has been, the way it's been here this last month. And they've been losing a lot of games, which only adds to the angst and all of that. All right, one more from Steph. Let's hear cut S here from Steph Curry for Kyle Haar there. To let him know about the challenge to have fun. The Warriors had some fun tonight, and that led them to a win. Here's Steph.
Yeah, we're all human. Like, your imagination can run wild at times. But first, like anybody who's going to demand something of a franchise organization, like is built on trust and communication. And the accountability, again, for me, for anybody who puts that jersey on, is to play your best. Like, have I played my best all year? More times than not, but there's been some lows. The challenge of trying to figure out how we put all these pieces together has been difficult, very inconsistent, but it can't kill your vibe of like having optimism that you can figure it out. So yeah, it's a daily challenge. You got to remind yourself to just have fun and play with joy like we did tonight. The rest of it will kind of work itself out.
Well, it starts with tonight, and let's see how far they can carry it, because Saturday night should be a win when the Warriors take on the Wizards at Chase. And then we'll see. They've had some success against Boston the last couple of years, including this year when they won in Boston. Boston's had some trouble at Chase the last few years winning games. And so we shall see. And then, games against Sacramento and Chicago and the Lakers and all that. So a lot of teams that are right there with them in the West, some of the best teams in the league, some of the worst teams in the league. The Warriors are going to see them all here between now and the trade deadline, which is 3 weeks from tomorrow. All right. That'll do it for Dubs, our Sounds of Dubs OT. Let's get to fun with numbers.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, Warriors do get the win tonight. Fun with numbers here in our final couple of minutes as the Warriors improve to 20-20, 10-10 on the road, 10-10 at home, 20-20. You're 40 games in, 2-2 on this trip, and 3-1 in the season series. Victory over the Timberwolves. The Warriors winning both games in Minnesota. We talked about that a little bit earlier. 3 of the last 4 games decided by 3 points or less. Warriors are 1-1 now this season in games decided by exactly 1 point. Warriors with their 5th straight game using a different starting lineup. Guy Santos made his first career start in this game for the Warriors. And so, the Warriors end up winning this game tonight. Started the game on a 13-0 run, which is the largest scoring run to start a game this season for the Warriors. They were up 7-0 at Washington. Warriors holding the Timberwolves to the lowest amount of points, the fewest amount of points in a quarter for any opponent. Both games that the Warriors played in Minnesota, get this, 12 in the first quarter tonight, 15 in the first quarter back on December 21st. So the Warriors in 2 games at Minnesota in the first quarter held the Timberwolves to 12 and to 15. The Warriors win a clutch game, 25th clutch game of the year. They are 12-13 in clutch games, and Minnesota now 12-14 in clutch games. Minnesota is the only team in the league that's played more clutch games than the Warriors. They're 26th tonight to improve, or as they fall now to 12-14 overall. Steph Curry, 31 points, game high, at least 25 in 3 of the last 4 games that Curry has played in, and at least 30 points in the last 3 meetings against the Timberwolves. So all 3 of those games that the Warriors won, the 30 points there with Steph Curry helping to bring him home down the stretch. 4 of his 7 3-pointers came in the first quarter. We talked about Trace Jackson-Davis, the 15 rebounds, a game high there. Andrew Wiggins, 24 points. He's got 20 in the last 2 games, and the 12th time this year he scored 20 or more. We mentioned the Buddy Hield stat with Buddy, 18 points, 10-0 are the Warriors when he scores 18 points. And Gary Payton II was a key cog tonight as he came back after missing all of the games, 10 games since Christmas. He got hurt on Christmas, left calf strain, 7.6 boards, a steal, 19 minutes off the bench for GP2 as the Warriors earn themselves a victory. All right, that's going to do it. Big thanks to Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios. Kyle, thank you. We had the great Raf Corral in studio. We got Overnight Dave behind you there for those watching. What's going on, Dave? Good to see you, brother. Kyle, anybody I'm leaving out tonight?
No, that was it. But yeah, good game, good show, good stuff.
Yeah, good game, good show, and we'll do it again here beginning on Saturday from Harmonic. Make sure you stop by and say hi at Harmonic, either Saturday or for the big meet and greet show that we're going to do on Monday, as we will be on after the Warriors face the Celtics during the national championship game. And so, yeah, this 8 of the next 9 at home for the Warriors, and then to Sacramento a week from tonight, as well as the one road game between now in the next 3 weeks here, and then the trade deadline, which is coming up on February 6th. So for Kyle and Dave and everybody, Raf Corral, I'm JD. We'll talk to you on Saturday right here, KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Minnesota's 2 of 14, 0 of 7 for 3. Curry looking to shake Conley. He does, and he hits. Steph Curry, 3 of 3 from three-point land, and it's an 18-point lead.
Emirates Cup or bust?
Oh, hell yeah.
First of all, you gotta start off liking each other.
I'm super cereal.
Big fat dub.
Ain't nobody going to stop me.
I just wake up and I can shoot it no matter if I'm playing or not.
But great win.
Who are these guys?
I love you, JD. Bye, sugar.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.